Welcome to episode 2 of Extraordinary Pilots. Today we're going to talk about two of the most dangerous words in aviation. I know. I know. When we say those two words, we close the door to curiosity. We close the door to discovery, discovering things that we don't know exist outside of our knowing. We also just about eliminate the possibility for learning because we have closed the door to that possibility. I'm standing in front of a 1946 Piper J3 Cub that I've owned for over 20 years. And I've got over 20,000 hours. How many over? I don't have any clue. Don't care. Doesn't matter. But if I approach the flight that we're about to take with that knowing, that lack of curiosity, that lack of learning, I'm going to miss a lot. And some of those things we miss might be really important to us. Instead, if we approach flying with beginner's mind, that's a way for us to constantly refresh what we perceive, what we hear, what we feel, what we sense. So we're going to take a little flight today in sensei, which is a Japanese word for teacher, and it's my name for this little J3, and talk about beginner's mind from beginning to end. And we'll see if that's a different way and a better way to approach our flying. Let's go flying. On a recent introductory flight in this Cub, a 14-year-old girl, her first time ever in a little airplane, was completely taken by flying. As we flew along in the smooth morning air, she asked, "Why do you move those feet pedals when you turn? What does this thing do?" pointing to the carburetor heat knob. "And how high are we right now?" And a bit later she says, "When you stop the motor before landing, how come it's still running?" Now, I had to think about that one for a moment. How refreshing, though, to hear questions. Wouldn't it be great if we all had that hunger for knowledge, that curiosity about something exciting and unknown just beyond our awareness? When you were young, maybe 3 or 4, you probably wondered about most things in your ever-expanding new world, to the point where your parents probably grew quite weary of answering your endless questions. At some point, perhaps just after your 37th "why" of the day, your mom or dad probably said in desperation something like, "Because I said so." In other words, stop with the questions already. But a bit later in life, when you were in school, you were expected to know the answer to questions you were asked. If you asked a question, especially in front of your peers, it was a sure admission that you were just plain stupid, dumber than a box of rocks. That was embarrassing, and it didn't feel good to be in that place of vulnerability. That discomfort reinforced our reluctance to ever ask questions again. So avoiding them at all costs soon became a normal part of your life. Student pilots and young people like my Cub passenger often ask the best questions. Maybe it's because they don't think they're supposed to know the answers, so they're more likely to be comfortable asking. Now, perhaps after years in our profession or many hours in our logbooks, we'd rather eat worms than ask questions. What happens to that early curiosity, that thirst for knowledge? Sadly, it naturally disappears as we grow older. For most pilots, admitting that we don't know is very difficult. We want to be the expert, experienced, the one who knows. Asking questions or admitting you don't know something is a sign of weakness. Only inferior pilots ask questions. Right? Well, actually, nothing could be further from the truth. The very best pilots are the ones with questions, the insatiable learners. Having questions and beginner's mind has so many rewards. It's where the new is hidden. It's where we expand and grow. It's where learning begins. Having beginner's mind might start with questions like, what can I learn if I ask? What can I hear if I stop talking and really listen? What can I see if I look more closely? What am I not aware of right now? Or how can I better understand if I admit I don't know something? A lack of questions in our culture is one of the greatest impediments to our becoming better pilots, to becoming extraordinary.
So what's the big takeaway in this episode of Extraordinary Pilot? Well, the extraordinary pilot has beginner's mind, is someone who has questions and an insatiable curiosity, is deeply engaged in this moment and wants to know more than they want to be perceived as knowing. It's one of the gateways to being an extraordinary pilot. There's a whole world of new out there just waiting to be discovered. Be extraordinary.